Oh, it's Thursday night, and the beautiful thing about Thursday night this week is that we have no school tomorrow. Welcome, friends. I'm rolling solo for just a little while. Webbs will be on in a minute, but uh, yeah, it's been an interesting week. It's been a week of, it's been a longest short week of the school year for me, just because a lot of things have been going on and whatnot. But it's been cool. And tonight, our episode takes its inspiration from Hootie and the Blowfish. So Hootie, Gospel of Hootie, 8-1. The eighth track on their first album, Cracked Rear View, was Time. And about a minute into that song, Hootie declares he doesn't believe in time. And I think that is one of the great realizations that I had this school year, is that time is a circular thing when schools try to make it a linear one. And as we kind of dive into the episode, you'll kind of get the meaning a little bit. Hopefully, Webbs will be on soon. But the idea of time being a linear concept, I think, is damaging teachers right now during the distance learning, in that just the amount of work that people are doing, the amount of assignments that kids are receiving. It's getting a little overwhelming, because I think there is a destination that we're all trying to reach. That's kind of problematic. It's problematic inside of the face-to-face instruction, but it's even more so in distance learning, because we have the opportunity to kind of go away from those ideas. So there is a a very real, I don't know, uh, a very real opportunity for us to really add a little bit more dimension to how students learn, the pace in which students learn, and all that wonderful stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how stuff rolls. Webbs is here. Give me a second. I'm gonna let her in here. And Webbs should be there. Uh-oh. All right. Do. I see her here on my screen. She's just not inside of here. Let's see. She's there. Webbs.
Yeah, what's up?
All right, cool.
What did I miss? I was
Uh,
putting together a desk. I didn't finish it, but
just talking about this concept, and I'm going to ask you the software developer question in just a moment. But the idea, the concept that one of the main stressors right now with teachers is this constant drive to make things linear, right? To have one step, then another step, then another step, then another step, then finished. And I think that's complicating, and that is stressing people out, because that's not how we learn. We don't learn step by step by step. It's some kind of linear path. It's sometimes we bump our head and have to go back 3 steps, and then we have to go back forward, and we have to go around, and we have to do some other stuff. And the attempting to fix the amount of time I have to learn something is counterproductive and stresses people out.
so just to clarify, you're talking about the actual learning, not the way that modules and learning tasks or activities are laid out, right?
Exactly.
So like you want your activities and tasks and modules and whatever you want to call them, your learning experiences should be linear in some way. So it's especially for the littles, because it goes, in a very predictable way. However, we have to embrace the fact that the way that we learn things may not be linear. So we may have, jump down to step 3 and then go back to step 4. I think this is especially true as you get older. you have different schema and background knowledge already. And so oh yeah, that piece, perfect example. I don't want to ruin the ask a software engineer question, was something I was learning about earlier today. I was doing some research for work on a particular topic, and that led me to this framework. And I wondered who had created this framework, which then led me to look up what the corporation or what the company is. And the company is the MITRE Corporation, which is actually a corporation that was started by the government, or like in partnership with, and a bunch of people from MIT came over to start this corporation, and now they're responsible for things like CVE scores or CVE ratings, which is a vulnerability framework, so that you know like how severe a certain vulnerability is. They're responsible for all kinds of programs that we know about, and I had never heard of them before. So I went down this whole rabbit hole to connect all these ideas, which is going to make me better at what I do. But it was like kind of a winding, it's what I call a poker pie. So it was when the shortcut that you go to take actually takes longer than the original route, because you kind of go on this winding Alice in Wonderland type adventure.
Or like I'm using Hootie and the Blowfish as an inspiration for tonight's lesson, just because again, track 8 on their first album is called Chime. I wasn't a big Hootie and the Blowfish song, but that big Hootie and the Blowfish fan, but you could not escape that song in 1994. Like, song was all over the radio. It was literally
for sure.
everywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So one becomes a fan of the song because you heard it like every 15 seconds. And the big piece of the inspiration is that, 1 minute into the song, he says, "I don't believe in time." And that's kind of being someone who plays a lot of open world games. There's always a goal, but I can take as much time as I need to get to the goal. I can take side missions. I can go and talk to people. If you're someone like, again, Animal Crossing, what is the goal of Animal Crossing? Can I change the goal of Animal Crossing? Do I use it for social stuff? Can I go and do actual directives? There's a number. The game, in theory, gives you a lot of options in order to be successful, right? And unfortunately, our classrooms are not built that way. They're built to, there's one way to be successful, and you have a very limited amount of time to be successful there. If you don't get it in the limited number of opportunities I give you, then suddenly it's like, hey, you get the F and we move on, right? We're not coming back to that topic again. And so as a software developer, given that the things that you need to do your job have to change pretty regularly, right? Like the different pieces of information.
Sometimes it's literally like day to day, hour to hour.
So if you were to be judged, right? Judged and punished for not mastering something that literally changed 15 minutes. It was this 15 minutes ago. Now it's something totally different now. Like, how do you deal with that or how do you and your coworkers deal with the constantly changing information that you need to utilize in order to be successful, building what you have to build?
Oh my God, we revisit things a lot. So a perfect example of this is there are new versions of Kubernetes that come out every 9 months, I think it is. And when you're using software as a service, when you're looking at like using some kind of a platform, they'll usually be adding and changing the features that are out there. So like the platform that we're using, there was a feature that was in preview just a couple weeks ago. And that feature is no longer in preview. It's being released to actually be used, and it's considered, preview is like, hey, this may have issues with it, so you got to be okay with that. We may take this away tomorrow. You have to be okay with that. And so this feature went from preview to actually in production, and so we had to go revisit some of the things that we had set up to now incorporate this new feature that we were going to use. Another good example of that is stuff gets deprecated. So you have to constantly be going back and checking the stuff that you've set up. I mean, you do it in either a regular cadence or you have stuff set up to catch when those new things come out. But you do go back and you revisit the things you've already done so that you are ensuring you're not using things that are deprecated. Deprecated means like we're no longer supporting that. So for example, Windows 95. Hopefully not too many things run on Windows 95 anymore because it's deprecated. There is no long-term support for it. So yeah, like we'll go back and revisit things all the time. So there are definitely going to be times where if you took a snapshot of our work, it would look like, oh, well, you're not using this feature, or this library is deprecated and you haven't, stopped using it or something, because it takes time to catch up to those things. It takes time to figure out like, oh, hey, this isn't being used anymore. I need to update my software so that it isn't using that feature anymore.
So
I think also kind of tangential to this, something that I thought about is like we very much lean into the Power Rangers, Thundercats, X-Men mode of doing things. I've been thinking this a lot lately. Like we all kind of have different areas of expertise, and there are things that I know that my colleagues don't know. There are things that my colleagues know that I don't know. And so we rely heavily on one another and one another's expertise to fill in the gaps that we all have.
and so this is not where I was going to go, but the last thing is very, very interesting, right? So we've worked on this model of school where one person has to know all the things, right? As I go through school, I'm in all these subjects, and I got straight A's because I know all the things. No, you actually don't know all the things, right? Um, you're there are blind spots in your knowing all the thingsness all the time, and I think again that's where the grading becomes kind of problematic in terms of life, right? You also have a we don't emphasize collaboration, we emphasize group work, right? Which again reinforces the I know all the things and I'm just going to carry these other people who don't know all the things because I am the valedictorian type person and these other people are going to slacken whatever. But in terms of collaboration where everyone knows a piece of the project and we put those pieces in a real sense, we don't do that very much in school, right? But that is a skill that you just said as a software developer that you need to be able to say, I know this piece of this thing very, very well. I'm going to trust Bob to know his piece of the thing. And when we come together, we can put our pieces of the thing together without me having to invest the time to know all of the things because I can't know all of the things.
So this is interesting, right? I'm sure we're all very familiar with the joke of like, I'm gonna invite my teammates from college, my like group work teammates from college to my funeral so they can let me down one more time.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot because that was my experience. I was usually the person who like, had all my boxes checked, all my I's dotted and T's crossed, and inevitably there'd be someone who didn't do what they needed to do. However, one, that's also real life. Like you're going to have folks that are newer and they need additional support. And I feel like the part of the reason we end up in that situation is there are not opportunities in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school where you can be on a group project and it's low to no risk, right? Every group project you do has a grade assigned to it. So people like me who are like, no, I have to get an A, are going to do all that extra work so that they continue to maintain their A. So you're not really giving them an authentic experience of what being a part of a group is like. People that are the I have to get an A'ers aren't going to be able to let their guard down enough to let other people experience what it's like to basically let your group down. People that need you're not making it so that folks who do need additional assistance, like think about maybe if I have an EL partner on my team, they might need a little bit of a boost because it's harder for them to slog through doing things in a second language. You're not giving them a genuine and good opportunity for real collaboration because of that grade. I feel like that's constantly hanging over the experience. It becomes a very high risk experience because there is some, assigned letter grade to it that can impact them in a very real way. And it also makes us shy away from group work because and it makes us more competitive, like in a very bad way. It just like that tying a grade to group work and not giving opportunities for low risk, genuine collaboration opportunities, like that's unfortunate. And I think that's what leads to the bristling that a lot of folks have around group work and the negative experiences of it.
So another thing, kind of go back to Hootie and the Blowfish, right? Like
Yeah.
Hootie's name. First of all, Hootie isn't even in the band, right? The name band is just called Hootie and the Blowfish. Darius Rucker was the
Yeah.
lead singer, right? But a
Right.
band cannot exist with just somebody who sings. There has to be people who play instruments. And even if you take people, you add people and take people away, those positions still exist, right? And so
Hmm.
the other kind of idea here, and just get one of the things that I tend to go into my rabbit holes with is social media, reading about distance learning, kind of just tweets, what people are saying with tweets and stuff like that. And it's eye opening that people are screaming out, "Hey, we're drowning, we're drowning, we're drowning, we're drowning," and school districts in mass are not saying, "Okay, we have a better way to do this. Let's let's take this opportunity to revolutionize and evolve what we're supposed to do." We're still, again, this is the time period a kid has to be in class. This is what it needs to look like, and this is the time period you have to get your grades in. We're not letting everyone in the band play their instrument. We're saying that everyone has to be the lead singer. And if you learn those lyrics in a day and clear that assignment by tonight, then suddenly you get a failing mark, and we have the ability to damage you, right? Everything is punitive, punitive, punitive. We're not talking about learning. We're talking about punishing people, right? And
Hmm.
on the other hand, right, no teacher right now wants to be observed and evaluated at this point because we're talking about extenuating circumstances. This is a different beast right now, but we're still grading students as if. And again, I am not, even face to face. The grades thing is not cool, but at least face to face, I guess you could say that the mitigation of, um, you could say that was the way that we were doing it for the previous 50, 60 years. Now being freed of time, free of this linear process in which I say we do instructional Monday, I get my first assignment on Tuesday, then Wednesday we do this, and Thursday we do this, and Friday we get this test. Okay, we don't have to do that anymore. If everything is built, then kid can walk themselves. You have a generation of gamers, right, who are used to being able to amble around and go and talk to Bob at the grocery store and this person to find extra intel to beat this big boss that's coming up three boss in the or if I'm a kid, I'm gonna skip all that stuff and I'm going right to the boss because I think I can beat him and I die and I have to start over again. I shouldn't be penalized for that because every loss, and we're going to get to that in a second, every loss is a lesson, right? I'm learning something when I lose. Go ahead, Webs.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what if, I wonder if anyone has thought. I assume a lot of the reason that we're experiencing that is because of, uh, you know, like requirements. But if it would be great if we could just suspend that for a little while, and I think some of this ties back to that we still are looking at this as a temporary situation. And it is to a certain extent. Like it is probably only going to last for, another year or so. But that's not temporary really in school time. Like that's an entire school year. But I think because our heads are still embracing it as temporary, air quotes, we're thinking, oh, we just have to do this for a short period of time, so we're not going to change anything. And I feel like it should actually be the opposite way. Like if this is temporary, then we should have let the wheels off the car. Let's drive it underwater. Let's see if we can break it because this is temporary. But unfortunately, I think the temporary thing is making it so that we're sticking to what we have always done and just trying to cram it in this little distance learning box because it's temporary.
Well, and I'll agree with a lot of that. And what I will push back on though is again, it's always the Pirates Code thing. It always comes at the Pirates of the Caribbean to me. There's guidelines and there's rules. If I look at the situation, I look at the color of the law, I can always circumvent certain things inside there if I'm looking for a way to circumvent them. That's why lawyers exist, right?
If you're looking for a way to
That
circumvent them, which I don't think most leadership is, I think they're looking to comply, just like so many other people and things. They're looking to comply, make it through this temporary period, and go back to the way things were.
Well, and I think that is the most unfortunate part of this entire situation. Because any teacher right now that's teaching any kid, K through 12, and they don't hear the word Roblox. They don't hear Roblox is big, Five Nights at Freddy's, Among Us, all these games. And if you've never played Among Us, download it for your mobile device. It is an amazing game, and it's so simple. Like it's not even like this complex game. It's this. We got to find out who's trying to sabotage the mission. So we have deductive reasoning, we have inductive reasoning, we have collusion, we've got collaboration, you have all this stuff. And kids are playing these games. This is a high level adult thinking through people, through different actions. Why would somebody do this? Why wouldn't they do this? So and so just went in this room, and before it was working this way, now it's not working. Is this person
scientific method making inferences? AOC just like broke out some streaming record by streaming Among Us and getting people out to vote.
If you don't have students that are doing that, I don't think those students exist. I don't care if they're black, white, rural, whatever. They're playing Among Us. They're playing Roblox. They're playing on Xboxes and PS5 and Xbox X are coming out next month or in December. That's going to be big and huge.
Oh my God. And stop video game shaming.
What do you mean?
Like, because I've seen going to social media. I feel like social media, it cracks me up because I see leadership who's like, we just don't know how our teachers feel about things. It's a mystery to us. How are we going to figure this out? Look on social media, man. Join the group for your school district. Go look on Twitter. Like, you can find out how teachers are feeling. You just have to look on social media. And like, there are, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute, because one of the things that I cannot stand anymore is the, you can figure out TikTok. Why can't you submit your Google Classroom assignment? First of all, two totally different things, different skills, different like desire to participate. I want to go play Roblox and do Among Us and make TikTok videos. Submitting my boring PDF Google assignment is craptastic, and I have no interest in it. And you know that's the answer, so why do you keep posting the memes?
Indeed. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly, but I think also it's this is what I'm talking about in terms of there has to be a if we have to. And I don't like the teach like a pirate or whatever. I don't, because when I read the book, I was like, this is kind of silly. But the thing I do like about Pirates of the Caribbean and the idea of piracy is that there is a code unto ourselves that is malleable. Anytime I want to change the code, it can be changed. It is what it is, right? And so what I think has to happen, both in having parents as allies in the classroom is really cool. And I will say, I know that there are some parents or teachers have had some issues with. Overall, the grown-ups that have been in my classes have been hilarious. Like the conversation.
Guess what? That's not a new problem.
Oh, this is absolutely true. But having the grown-ups.
I feel like you're getting the net benefit of you have more parents involved much more easily.
And they are listening to the calls, and I'm like, hey, grown up, pop in real quick. I'm going to show you how to do this. So if your kid doesn't, and you have this ally, this person who also didn't know how to do the skill, right? So the kinders had the great movies. And so one of the kids' movies was like way better than the other ones. So I was like, hey, Liam, can you come on here and kind of talk to us about so-and-so? He's like, yeah, me and my dad did so. I'm like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. And he explained to us what they had done, whatever. They had used the tool, but the dad had some experience with some other editing tools and stuff. And they cut it up and whatever. It was really dope. And I'm like, hopefully that's an experience this kid is going to remember for the rest of their life, that me and my dad worked on this video to show what an alien would look like on Mars, given the fact that we learned about the conditions on Mars and how that creature would have to adapt or whatever. But I don't grade any kid's assignment by definition. That's just my rule. I do not grade any kids, especially when you're talking about creative endeavors, right? Because if you ever walk through a museum, there's a lot of stuff I look on the walls and I say, that is crap. Like that I don't care what you say, this person's, that's garbage. It's a person's interpretation and everybody's opinion about what something looks like and what the value of something is. Everybody's flavor isn't everybody else's flavor. There's certain kids that their stick figure, you'll look and say, that is marvelous. That kid captured exactly what I wanted it to do. And some kid will spend 3 weeks drawing a picture and I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. Not mine to say. Did you fit up the letter of the law and you do what I did what I asked you to do? Awesome. Now, people always say, and I had a teacher say this today, Mr. Lang, you're a specialist. Okay. And I'll take that. But specialist as in I teach one class per grade level per day. All right. But I still teach 846 students in 7 days. So every kid in that school I see. When we start talking about the classroom teacher, i.e. the person in K-5 who's responsible for math and reading and science and history, etc., one of the pushbacks that I received was, yo, we have a lot of stuff to cover. And I'm like, okay. Now, this is where I go back to the video game analogy. For our gamer friends out there that might be listening, there's one game in particular that to me is like the greatest example of how learning should be done. And that is Skyrim. If you've never played Skyrim before, go invest on it. It's an excellent game. It's one of the Elder Scrolls games. It is amazing. The game's been out for like 10 years. I still play it religiously. It is totally open world. You can do what you want. You can go fight dragons. That is a main quest. I have never completed the main quest. In almost 10 years, I've never completed all the side quests. Can be busy. I can get my player up. I can learn different skills. I become a wizard. All these other quests are more interesting to me, and they still get me in a roundabout way further into the story. So instead of having a situation, this is why I talk about learning as that time is not a linear thing in school. It shouldn't be a linear thing in school. It shouldn't be, this is the deadline to learn X, Y, Z. Because now you're saying that Webbs is like Mike and Mike is like Webbs. And you're going to learn at the same pace I'm learning. And we're only going to offer it this week. And if you don't get it this week, Webbs, if you don't get it this week, Mike, it ain't on the menu no more. We give you the F. You got an F for that standard for the rest of your life. And we keep it moving. I never revisit those things.
Why is there a time limit on learning in American public education?
Because we have to cover all the standards. And
why, but still, why the time limit? So we have to cover all the standards, but there is a time limit on covering those standards, right? Why is there a time limit?
Chronology.
Okay. So what kind of chronology?
You are 7 years old and you are in third grade or whatever it is, and you need to finish these standards are for third graders. Third graders need to know this stuff. And if you don't know about it in the third grade, then there's something wrong with you.
Right? Which feels very what's the word I'm looking for?
Unfair.
Made up.
Yeah, totally.
Made up.
That's right. Totally.
Like it feels very much like a lot of the reason our system is the way it is, because it wasn't always this way, right? At some point there were one-room schoolhouses. Everybody learned kind of the same random things for many years. And maybe at some point we decided like, this doesn't work. Or maybe it was, wow, there's a lot of kids for this one-room schoolhouse. Maybe we need to break them up in two groups and so on and so forth. And at some point we decided grades by age, giving some grades are weird too, right? Like you start going to school when you're 5 because
that's what we decided to do. There's probably some education scholars like, 5 is the optimal year for X1.
Yeah. Or it's random. It's like the cutting the ends off the roasts. Why do you do that? I don't know. Grandma always did it. Yeah, because my pan wasn't big enough to fit the roast. Like, so much of what we cling to so hard is because that's just some random arbitrary thing. And then we codified it with some laws. And now there are rules about you have to start going to school by the time you're 5 in some places. And we break everything down by age group, even though we know people develop at different rates. They learn at different rates. They learn in different ways. We know all these things, but we're like, no. Let's just leave it the way it is. Let's leave our random cutting up these groups by age the way it is. So yes, it's nonsense. It's BS. Like there is no reason why there needs to be a time limit on your learning. As adults, there is not a time limit on your learning. So I don't understand why. And if we really wanted to make it that way, why don't we just say, hey, you get to be in the public school system from the time you're 5 until you're 18. What if What if diplomas were no longer a thing?
What if diploma just meant that you finished? Like
Yeah,
it just you're done now. You can go get a job.
you did your 15 year or 13 years.
But
Deuces.
that would start another problem because then we have the bigger issue, which is kind of where we're going. What is the point of school? Like why do kids have to go to school? In your
That
opinion,
depends on who you ask.
I'm asking your opinion and the web's
Oh,
opinion. Why is it that we have to go to
well,
school?
presently kids go to school because we need daycare. I think that's really like the fundamental underlying reason we need low cost daycare so that parents can go to work. That's I think the underlying reason it still exists today. And I think what we've seen throughout the pandemic reinforces that it's the most important thing about school is that parents have low cost childcare. However, I think that from a political perspective, it's to churn out workers that can function in society but aren't so bright that they get ambitious. And what I would like school to be is giving kids the tools to realize their dreams.
Mm.
So, whatever they want to do, here's a tool set where you can achieve that. That's what my ideal for education would be. What do you think? What is education? What is your vision for what education could or should be?
So my view of education has changed. This is so to be totally transparent. This is year 17, so I've been doing this for 17 years. And if you were to ask Mike Lang year one, hey, what do you think school is for? I think
That dimension would change my answer too,
yeah,
but go ahead.
you would have this like, oh yeah, school is this place where kids learn and they do the like, okay. 17 years in, multiple school districts later, multiple countries later, and you start to understand, I guess, that let me preface that by saying this first. What I do like about our school system in America is at least there is there is the realization that in order to have an equitable opportunity at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, one has to have a certain level of skills. I think that the realization of that by school system, I think that there's not a school system in the country that doesn't say, "Hey, kids, want to. This is what we want to churn out here." I think the issue with school is you have a scenario in which you have babysitting as part of the duties there. You have multiple the MTSS, that the multi-tiered systems of support systems there, where you have, especially for those students who come from impoverished backgrounds, that you have even more layers of the onion to unpeel in order for this person to be successful, right? So there's a lot of the complication given to schools and handed to them and say, hey, you figure this out. Is it fair, right? It should be a scenario in which the multiple roles of schools should have one role, education. All that up feeding people and making sure people can go to the dentist and that's somebody else's job. But those things are folded in schools because of the fact that it's compulsory education, because of the fact that we know where the kids are going to be. So why not, just deliver services in a certain place? What I would like school to be, I would like school to be job training. And not job training in the sense that we want you to be a janitor, Bob, or a cook or whatever. And if you end up a janitor or cook, I'm not demeaning those jobs. I'm just saying, look, we want everyone to have the opportunity to be a software developer or a CEO or entrepreneur or whatever. And whether you end up a cook or a janitor or the aerospace engineer or whatever, everyone was given the opportunity to choose their own path, just like like an open world game. That's where I think it's unfair, right? That's where I think the whole system is unfair, is that if you're in the open world game webs and you got a mother and a father who are both college graduates and you live in a place where you're getting 3 square a day and your dad knows people and your mom knows people and whatnot, you ain't playing the same game I'm playing, right? We're playing different games. And so the school is supposed to be the equalizing tool that says no matter where you come from, everyone gets this opportunity. And it's not that. And that's what frustrates me. And that's what kind of gives me with this kind of linear path. It's built for the kid who has supports. It is not built for students who are, might take, not because they're not intelligent, but might take multiple bites of the apple in order to prove to you the apple is sweet. And if I get after the third bite of the apple, I tell you the information that's necessary, that F, if we're dealing with grades, should be erased and it should be turned to an A. Because it shouldn't be how long it took me to learn it. It should be whether I learned it or not. And that is the problem I have with the punitive nature of how our system is set up, where as a teacher in my evaluation, I have opportunities to go from a 1 to a 3 by the end of the school year, right? If by first evaluation, I really suck in a certain thing, I can work, and I'm not penalized. I'm not giving the 1 and saying that is the final grade. I have an opportunity to evolve that into a 3 so I'm satisfactory. Students don't get that opportunity. And so why are the most vulnerable individuals in the system, why are those people the most punished?
Is that rhetorical, or do you want me to answer it?
I actually want you, I'm just a rhetorical question, but you can answer if you want. So,
no, I'm good.
So that's where we come to the kind of the baseball idea, right? You're unfortunately a Dodgers fan. It won't happen again, probably. The fact that they are actually...
It'll probably be like 25, 30 years, something like that.
The fact that they're favored next year is kind of, that's a damning thing for them.
No, I'm not going to... They're going to blow that entirely, and this is coming from someone who knows them relatively well. Yeah, that's going to be... They're going to probably like make it to the National League Championship and then like just blow that. I'll win like 1 game and then blow the rest of the games entirely and horribly.
You've been, we spoke earlier in the week and you were talking about how baseball is the sport that's most like life, right? I think baseball is the sport that's most like school as well, or should be the sport that's most like school. Mm-hmm. You kind of expound on that baseball analogy and why you kind of talked about that.
That came from, I was actually watching a YouTube video. I mean, I had kind of felt this way anyway, and I was trying to put my finger on it. I was talking to my roommate about it. And I don't know why baseball feels more like education than, say, basketball or football. I've kind of started to figure it out. Like, baseball players have really long careers. Maybe that's part of it. So it's a different dynamic than, say, like football players who have very short careers. There isn't the depth like you have, in baseball. It goes single A, double A, triple A, and then you get to the major leagues. And so I was watching this video about the Dodgers. So they were previously owned by the McCourts, and that was not a good time. They were rich people who overspent and didn't care about the team and kept the budget really tight. And so they went through this horrible divorce, ended up selling the Dodgers to another group, which included Magic Johnson. And so this person on YouTube was basically doing like an essay about comparing the Dodgers under the McCourts and the Dodgers under the new Dodgers, basically. And the thing that I thought was really fascinating was the new way they've been doing things and what their approach is. Because, and then he ends up comparing the old Dodgers and the new Dodgers on wins above replacement. And in every single, because he even like split up Clayton Kershaw's wins above replacement because, he was purchased he was acquired under the McCourts. And anyway, that's not important. So one of the things that there are a couple points that stuck out to me. One was the way that they treat the players in single, double, triple A, and how usually players in single, double, triple A get a per diem for their food. They get like $25 a day. And my roommate was telling me like there's a YouTuber, Antonelli Baseball. He was a former major league. He spent a little bit of time in the major leagues and then majority of it in triple A. And he was talking about how he would take his per diem, go after a game, pick up McDonald's, and go back to his hotel room. And like, I don't know if you know much about nutrition, but a steady diet of McDonald's is not really going to fuel your athletic persona.
Mm.
And so what the Dodgers started to do was they would either send a professional chef around with the teams, or they would have catering come in from like a Whole Foods or some kind of high end grocery store food place. And so and they were doing this for all the lower tier of the farm system. So I thought that was really interesting, right? Because here you are expecting people to perform at an elite level, and you're giving them letting them subsist on garbage. So like those two things are antithetical to one another. Like that does not help, fuel your goals really if your players aren't getting the best nutrition possible. So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing that stuck out to me was the culture and how they made it easy for players. Like they didn't make players change things from level to level. They got to keep they made it very consistent all the way through, where they made it so that if they had a certain ritual they did before they, got ready or before a game or whatever, they get to keep those rituals all the way along. They didn't change anything. And the coaches too, they talked a lot about like the culture of the coaches and how, we're all one team. It's not about the one superstar player or anything. And that the coaches were expected to have like, a positive attitude about things. Like if they were going to be these, like, pardon my language, hard asses about stuff and be complete jerks over things, that is not what they wanted. They wanted a very positive, like encouraging, vibe. And they didn't look for big hitters. They looked for people who could make contact. And then as they came up through the system, then they added to their repertoire these being able to be heavy hitters. So they grew them to be heavy hitters. And that's why you had that consistency throughout the entire lineup where anybody could hit a home run, right? So it wasn't just there's one or two. It was everybody could make contact and everybody could hit a home run. And that's why, because they invested really early on in making sure that their experience through the whole thing was, they were fueling them right. They were getting them all in a good place as people.
Mm.
And then on top of that, they were building their skills.
Interesting. So I'm going to take that idea from the actual game, right? So not just the different leagues, because if I'm a single A player, there's a very high likelihood I never make it to the big show at all. There's plenty of documentaries about people who been 35, 40 years old and never got over double A ball or whatever. But like in a baseball game, you've got tons of players that come in and out. You got different situations. You got strategies you have to use. Sometimes you have to play small ball. Sometimes you hit a home run. Sometimes you drop the ball. There's errors. You got you have humans who have to go and tell somebody if it's a strike or a ball, and you have to just deal with whatever this person is calling, right? So the amount of variability in a baseball game for a game, even though it's the game is the same for every team, but it's not the same for every team. Every game is different.
The fields are all so different. I mean, they're starting to kind of homogenize, but you have like the Wrigley's and you have Fenway and stuff like that.
The big green monsters. You got weird Bush Stadium, weird stuff. You got the fountains in Kansas City. Go ahead.
You go into extra innings and then have to put a position player in as a pitcher.
There's no time limit to a game. The game can last 17, 18 innings until somebody wins. The home team always bats last. So I always have a chance. If I'm playing at home, I always have a chance to win it at the very end or to take it and make it, go farther. Baseball is a game. I'm gonna, again, I really admire the Tampa Bay Rays just because if you look at the limits to their budgets, for them to consistently be a high level baseball team. And LA has Mookie Betts had $325 million contract he just signed with them. Tampa Bay's entire roster makes $28 million. And you're looking at them and you're saying, okay, cool, analytics. And the interesting thing about analytics kind of let them down at the end, right? They took Ian Snell out. Ian Snell. If they take Snell out when he's pitching a gem of a baseball game and they end up losing the game. Like I was surprised. But the analytics said They don't pitch people behind after six innings. They bring it. They set to their same patterns, and unfortunately, their patterns been on the butt. But that's neither here nor there. The baseball analogy does not require everyone to hit a home run. I can be on your team, and I can be the worst hitter on your team, but the best defensive player. I could be somebody who is a think of Kiko Hernandez on the Dodgers. I can play a lot of positions pretty decently. I'm not going to be an all-star at all the positions, but I play a lot of the positions pretty decently. There are different places in different ways for somebody to contribute, and when we win, we all win. Does not function like that, right? School is a zero-sum game in a lot of ways. It's this person gets the A, this person does not. This person happened to, and I've had this situation this year, and I'm assuming every teacher's had this situation. What happens to the kid that comes in halfway through a semester or 2 months after school is started? How do you assess that student in a fair and equitable way, given that that student wasn't there for all the information that was previous to them? Do you hold it against them that they came from someplace else? And they might have been in a different place, right? That teacher of another school might have done the standards in a different order or did something. Is that person responsible for something they're not in control of? You know, that gets a little weird there. So the baseball thing, and if you're not a baseball fan, being a casual baseball, one of the cool things about the pandemic, Webs, I'm assuming you have this similar experience, is being things that I would never, ever, ever enjoy watching. I've begun to enjoy watching. They're like weird television shows. For example, I don't like baking, but I watch baking shows now, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, the Great British Baking Show is an amazing show. No, I mean, I liked the hosts, the prior hosts, a lot more. But
I can't cook, so those shows never really I didn't have affinity for those. But when you sit and watching them, and you're like, okay, this is interesting, and they start talking about, they use the vocabulary for their particular industry, and you're like, that's a really interesting concept. And then you start looking at the things that you do know about the show. You start looking at the science and the chemistry, and you're like, okay, I know that. That makes very good sense. That person is doing this, And so, I mean, I think that's also something kind of cool, but again, that's neither here nor there. When we're talking about the circular nature of things, Webbs, and again, given your job as a software developer, what is it that encourages you to continue to learn and master skills as you go forward?
That's a heavy question. For me, I just like to learn things. I mean, that's part of it.
Is that an innate thing, or is that something that was taught to you, shown to you, you developed? Like, where did that come from?
I have no idea. I would have to ask my mom. So if my mom is watching, please let the folks here know if I have always been a curious person or not.
Would you say that is a characteristic that is unique to you?
Oh God, no. And I think that it is something that can be nurtured. I think part of why I'm okay asking questions is I don't remember too much when I was younger, when I asked about things, being told to I don't remember being shut down. So if I wondered about a thing, my mom would, every now and then she'd get annoyed and be like, stop it. But it was always, what book can we go look that up in? And now it'd be like, can we look up that on the internet? I wonder a lot, I guess. And I feel like maybe that's part of what the role of school should be, is encouraging that I wonder part. Again, going back to my roommate, he's been really great for helping me break down the things I think I can't do. I think I've mentioned this before on the show, this idea that, all the things around us were built by some person. Some person came up with that idea. They figured out how to get it manufactured. They put up the walls of your house. They installed lights and whatever. And that person is no different than me or you or anything else. They're just a person. They don't have any kind of magical, abilities. They're just a person. So when you really break things down that way, it's given enough time and money, I can probably figure out how to do anything. But the other thing that motivates me is wanting to like make my team proud from a professional perspective. Like it's really important to me that because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So recently I have left the W-2 workforce and now kind of work for myself, contracting with another company. And so I don't have things like yearly reviews or any of that. And so I've been thinking without that motivation, without someone telling me what I need to do to contribute to the company or what goals I need to meet in order to get a good, review for the year or whatever, what is important to me?
Mm.
And I thought about it for a while and eventually came down to like, I don't want to be voted off the island. Like, I want my teammates to want to have me on the team. That's what's most important to me from a professional perspective. That and being knowledgeable in my field. So that's a lot of what motivates me professionally now is not wanting to let my team down. So that's a motivator to like learn more about what we're, building and the different technologies we use and security, information security stuff and whatever. It's because I don't want to let my team down. I mean, I'm a naturally curious person. That's why I went down that rabbit hole I mentioned earlier. But I think curiosity is something that can be nurtured. The reason why people shut down certain parts of themselves is because I think I'm no psychologist. Is because they have been like somehow rejected or told like that's not a good thing to do. So I think, or they've received some kind of like negative penalty for it, right? So if I ask questions and maybe I go off on a tangent, I don't get my project done, I'm going to have that negative association with curiosity now because I went down a different rabbit hole, didn't get my project done, now I feel bad.
So to me, you just described kindergarten, right? Every kindergarten that I've ever met has been curious. There's very, very few. No, there's zero kindergartners that are not curious people. Those people don't exist. Um, as you get farther away from kindergarten, I think you become curious about different things. I think kindergartners are curious about everything. Everything is new. But how do we keep the kindergarten in a kid when they're 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, 35? Um, and I think that's, again, getting away from the linear and going to the circular where we continue these motions where I fall, get hit in the head, and I get back up. But the babies, we find toddlers, they hit their head on the side of the table and fall down. If no one makes a noise, they get back up and handle their business. If someone, oh my God, the baby, then the baby starts crying. The baby don't know that getting hit in the head is not a bad thing. They get up and they keep it moving, right? So, in terms of the tools that we have at our fingertips to kind of allow students to continue to fail, continue to learn and say, it might take me 27 times, but on the 28th time, I got it. We can utilize, and this is what I'm speaking to our state in particular, every teacher in the state of Nevada, whether no matter what district you're part of, whatever, has access to Canvas. As much and as easy as Google Classroom is to utilize, it is a linear tool in terms of inside of the LMS, and it's not a true learning management system. In the learning management system, you take a document, you put it someplace, and the kid turns their stuff in. There is nothing inside of Google Classroom itself that allows students to continue to do something over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in order to prove that they understand something. There are different tools you can add to Google Classroom to do that, but in and of itself, it doesn't do that. The the benefit of Canvas is that, true to its name, it's a blank canvas. You can paint on
Yes.
it what you want, right? That's kind of the interesting thing about it. And that's the scary part of Canvas. That's the thing I think that intimidates a lot of people, that there is inherently nothing on the sheet of paper.
Yeah, that's really overwhelming.
And
Oops,
so
sorry.
it's overwhelming, but it's also really, really sexy, right? I can go and chisel this piece of marble. Once I learn little pieces, I can chisel this piece of marble into anything that I want. And I can really allow students to go on adventures within this place that are relevant, that are attractive, and that still get to my standards but allow them to go at a pace that is just it works for them. All right. And so I'm going to show just a basic part of this. Is my first part of my little fifth grade and my fourth grade course here. And I'm going to walk you through this in the last couple of minutes that we have here. And Webbs, you can chime in as we go through. But just what's possible. All right. So this is just my Canvas shell here. And I just moved one of my Canvas courses into a workroom. So I just built this workroom, just called it the danger room for right now. All right, so first and foremost, you will see that we can make this as attractive as we would like. So I got some GIFs moving here, some edits and stuff. This is not like uber difficult stuff once you start to play around with the keynote and things like that. But there's my little logo. We're going on adventures or whatever. Welcome to technology class. You're going to do some stuff. So here are our modules. Brand new users when they had to build their little brand. All right. But I want to take you to the gift that keeps on giving. So this is the module that we're currently in. Now, when I do my face-to-face lessons, when I speak, I am speaking about the current module. That does not mean that every kid is on the current module. There are kids who are still on module 1, and they can take their time and get to module 1 if they would like. What they cannot do, though, the prerequisite to even seeing this material is you having completed these first pieces of information. You can build prerequisites into Canvas, which makes, again, a very powerful learning method. You can't continue to go forward unless you beat this one board, video game style. You can't go to the next board unless you beat the first boss, right? So here's your information. You're going to turn your assignment in. Once that assignment is turned in, great. Then the next stage opens up for you. I go and I assess you on that first stage and we do what we need to do. So you can build these things in, and it's linear without being such. There are no time limits for any of this stuff. A kid can take 3 months to finish the first module if they want to. Now, do I check and see on a daily basis who's finished the modules and who has not finished the modules? Of course I do. But at the same time, you're like, okay, look, fam, when I go to your meetings, and this is what we talk about, that whole SIP philosophy, right? Those in-person meetings being small, being impactful, and being personal. Yo, I say, hey, Bob, you ain't finished the logo yet, fam. Is there something going on, homie? Well, I was in LA, Mr. Lang, all last week. All right, bet that. Is there anything I can help you with the logo? Oh, nah, I just need to watch the video a couple more times. We'll be all right. Great. We can go through the line. Anybody who needs to stay in the meeting can stay in here. And I can speak to their issues directly and surgically rather than having this long roundabout talk about stuff. The other deal is recording your lessons so they exist before you do that in-person learning, right? I think that's another place, Webbs, where a lot of people are wasting time. If you go and create the lessons beforehand, Flipgrid, YouTube, your phone, whatever, Loom, any of the tools that you want to deal with, here's the lesson. It's a 10-minute lesson. I've recorded it all the way through. The kid can go through it at their own time. When I'm doing my live lesson, I'm simply answering questions and laughing, right? We talk about what Halloween costumes people are going to be watching or be using on Saturday, what candy you like or whatever, but we're not going to get into a scenario in which I am trying to deliver a lesson at a pace that may not be suitable for every student in the actual live session. So I may have people in there that, you know what, that live session you just delivered, nah, fam, that wasn't fast. That was too fast. I need to go back. Now I have to double dip. I have to go and record a lesson again for this particular student, which that I think is contributing to people's stress. But to show you here, go ahead, Webs.
I was just gonna say, so in theory, if we're taking that 10,000-foot view, I as teacher, I go through my standards. I create modules that cover each of the standards more than once. Yep. In theory, that should be all I have to do because students can go back and redo it as many times as they want. So they work their way through their stuff. And here's where I think the cramming the old way into the new way fails. Because when I fill out my grade book, now I'm using like, okay, this kid did this thing and this kid did this thing and this kid doesn't have this thing. And that's more, I think, a fault of that old grade system trying to fit into the new way we should be doing things. I mean, I am by no means an expert, but what you're saying makes sense. And college classes are all online and work this way. So why can't everybody else?
In theory, Webs, I'm saying that a teacher right now who's properly motivated and is thinking can build their entire class out. Even when we go face to face, we're talking about blended learning the entire time. The kids can work. The cool thing, and this is one of the things when I was on a panel with Representative Susie Lee, a congresswoman, and the one of the things that I said that was going very, very well, I thought, was the fact that every kid has a device now, right? Every kid has a device. So when we go back to face, we'll be able to say, hey, Bob, when you go home, go on YouTube, watch that video. Tomorrow we're going to discuss X, Y, and Z, right? Because every kid has a device. And my hope is that we will evolve to a point where we look at internet access as a common good, and we make sure that everyone has internet access at least from the time they're in school age to the time they graduate from high school. That every kid has access. I can go home, I can utilize YouTube, I can go and look at my classes or whatever. But there's another piece inside here, Webs, that really, really is kind of powerful. And I'm going to kind of just show this very, very quickly. So right now, the kids are building GIFs. And I had a teacher say, why do kids build on GIFs? Now, first of all, social media managers make a ton of money, right? And they use GIFs in Twitter, they use memes, all kinds of building. If you have not seen Wendy's Twitter account, go and do yourself a favor. Follow Wendy's Twitter account. It's hilarious. You got to be very smart to work social media. But one of the things that they're learning is they're learning how to, on both their Chromebooks and their iPads, to take GIFs, build the GIFs out, and look at GIFs for a particular situation. Because what they're going to eventually build is a ABC book for a kindergartner using just GIFs. They're going to have to find some topic that they're knowledgeable about, Fortnite, whatever the devil else. Take the ABCs of that game and explain those to a kindergartner, just using GIFs from the game, the ideas or whatever. Great. Now, goal at the top of the page, what they need, all the hyperlinks are there. And then, now, if you're using YouTube, this is an indispensable tool. Annotate TV, indispensable. I do not teach any more off YouTube without it. Because, excuse me, you cannot add cards inside of videos that are built for students. Now, what cards allows you to do is essentially put places inside of the video that would start and stop like chapters, right? Can't do that anymore. So what Annotate TV lets me do is build those cards on the side there. So if I'm a student and I'm like, look, I just need to know how to use 1 through 3 apps, I can go there and it takes me directly to that spot. If I'm like, hey, I don't know how to do the custom crop, Mr. Lane, it takes you right to that spot, right? I don't have to watch the entire video anymore. It allows me to create an experience that allows that student to be surgical, which I think is I don't want to waste your time. I want you to find what you need to find as easily as possible. I have to do Chromebooks and iPads. A lot of teachers are just going to do iPads, but Chromebooks rather, but I have to do both. Great find down if we build those things in there. Can that kid watch that video as many times as they would like? Absolutely, positively. Can I have a scenario in which if I'm a high school teacher, I'm a classroom teacher, I say, you know what, all of the modules or your work that you're going to complete needs to be done the week before grades are due, and I give that arbitrary date. The other thing I think, Webs, that needs to happen is we need to look at grading as I'm going to grade what you finished, not what you should have finished, right? So I am going to count the grades for how many modules did you finish. I finished just the first module, Mr. Lang. Cool, I'm just going to grade you in that module on your report card, with the idea that you will finish other modules in the future. But right now, I have no idea what you did in Module 2 because you haven't done Module 2. Module 1, yep, you're going to get assessed on that. And if you get through Module 2, great, fine, dandy. But I think that's the other piece that's missing with the grades, Webs. We're saying that this is the standard for everyone. I'm being assessed. There are kids right now in high school, 1.8 GPAs, 1.9 GPAs, because you didn't turn all the work in. Okay. What did he get on the actual work he turned in? Oh, he would have got an A. Well, give him an A, right? Look at the standards that the person actually you have evidence for, rather than having this unfair opportunity for the fast kid, the gate kid that might stay up all night and get all his work done, gets everything finished. Okay, great. Grade him on all the standards. But me, who is an ELL learner, who might have a job, might have to take care of my grandma, I shouldn't be set to the same standards as everybody else there in that situation. What say you, Webbs?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that grading is an antiquated practice that is primarily there, I think, to communicate to parents who use the same grading system. And so it's perceived as a shorthand. I've been using a lot of air quotes tonight. Sorry about that. It's perceived as the shorthand way of conveying progress when learning should never be punitive. That's exactly right. Also agree with what Verena said earlier about modules being key. That's super important. But yeah, like I think that it's perceived as a shorthand way of sharing progress when that's not really the case. Like grades are actually exceptionally subjective. It depends on the teacher and what their background and assessment is and how many assignments there are. And like you can have that progress, that picture of progress get watered down or completely be inaccurate based on how many assignments and how they're weighted. And it's a really specific and in-depth skill that like most teachers are probably like okay at, but there's definitely some where that's not their skill, that's not what they're good at, and you end up with these like completely off base pictures of what progress is. And I agree with you that it is where I am now and being able to say, hey, I've made it through modules 1, 2, and 3. Most of the class has gotten through modules 1 through 4. So I am a little bit behind. Like that could be maybe enough of a picture that you don't have to say like, you're failing at whatever and you didn't do this right. And why couldn't you, even if I get through module 1 and I don't quite get it, if I get to module 3 and want to go back to module 1, because we do this all the time in open world games, why not? Like, why not go back and go through it again? And then you can revisit whatever you graded me on there if we really want to stick to the grades thing. Like, I just think there are such better ways to do it, but so much of it revolves around I got to get my progress reports out. Oh, I have to get my unsat notices out. Like, why? What if we just didn't do any of that? Like,
so kind of.
What if you just get your 13 years and we're good? Like, whatever you got to do in those 13 years is what you did.
I think that there is. I'm not saying don't assess and help people master things. I think.
Oh, I agree with that. That's not what I was trying to say either.
So I'm totally down with you sitting down with somebody and saying, you know what, Webbs, we're having some struggles here reading complete sentences. We need to go in. That's a skill that if you can't read complete sentences, you might have some difficulties like doing other things in life. Got you. But I think what we're saying in unison here is the punitive nature of how you're assessing people damages people and causes people not to be successful later on in life. Case in point, and this is kind of the great thing. This is why video game designers have it right. All right. So I've been playing Titanfall 2 for 5 years. I got it the first day it came out. I run with the same dudes and gals that first year we started playing. So we got, there's different the different little gamer groups and stuff and everything like that. Now, the most experience that you're going to have in this game is generation 100.99. If somebody has that as they have got to the last level of experience. You can't go any farther than that. So the Gen 100 people, when you see them, you're like, oh, this guy has been grinding. This guy has been grinding this game for years. They've gotten all these things. I'm generation 90, right? So my goal is to get to 100. I got 10 more generations to get to. Generation 100 does not mean how good a player you are. It's just how long you've been playing the game. So while one can infer if you see Generation 100, like a lot of the noobs on there were like, oh, man, he must be really good. He's Generation 100. No, he just plays this game a lot, fam. He's gotten a lot of this experience points because he's literally on this game for 14 hours a day. Right? Yeah, you're going to get Gen 100. And you're going to know all the hide spots to go shoot people and hide. You're going to know all the cheats and stuff. Experience leads to mastery, right? The more I see something, the more I can go and say, yep, I know exactly how to deal with this scenario. And when you start playing with the Gen 100s, like I was playing with guys before the show, they're like, hey, no, don't go there. You know, there's a blind spot right here. And you slide in a little blind spot, no one can see you. You jump out and you shoot people or whatever. And you're like, all right, cool. He knows that because he saw somebody else do that 3 years ago who did X. So if we look at things as how many experiences can we give a student with something, and even though Malcolm Gladwell's kind of 10,000 hours to be an expert thing has kind of been debunked in a lot of ways, I still think it doesn't take you 45 minutes to learn how to read, fam. Like it takes you years to get that ability. So for you to offer me, okay, in 4 45-minute lessons, you're going to learn how to read this paragraph, so and so, and on Friday we're going to test you. No, we're not. That's not going to work. That is not going to work for 99% of the population, right? So also taking a situation where learning is a slow, meticulous process in which people fall and fail multiple times. And that should not be punished like it is punished in our schools over and over again. It should be, why didn't that work, Bob? Okay, I didn't look at it this way. Or that person behind me, if you start talking video games with little kids, I don't care if they're girls, boys, they speak English. I played with some Spanish speaking homies with my EMX group last night. Word up to y'all if y'all watching, you're probably not. Whole conversations, we're on the mics, they're speaking in Spanish the whole time. Now, I caught like maybe 25% of the words we were talking about, but I generally got one of the guys would shoot to let me know where he was so I could get around there and flank people and stuff. There's ways to communicate as well. So highlight video games are great, great, great places to do stuff. Go ahead, Webs.
I don't think it's just video games, though. I think this applies if you're a musician who's learning how to
facts
play
facts.
with a group and do an instrument. If you're on a sports team where you're learning to work with other people and try to how to perfect your follow through from your swing, or golf or whatever, basketball, the shooting with the ball and things and layups. That's a word, right, in basketball?
Yes, that is the word in basketball.
All of those things require like this practice. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's a great, Verena, you have to be here all the time. Are kids getting enough feedback? Do they even know where they are in progression? That's a really good question. Like, and are we doing a good job of framing that? What does progress look like?
So that's why I harp on video games a lot. All right. Because what do video games do an excellent job of? Instantaneous feedback. You know immediately whether you got it right or you got it wrong, and to what level you got it right to or you got it wrong. If the goal was to get through set XYZ level with 90% energy by the end of the situation, and you get extra points for 90%, you get some more points for 70%, you get some for 50%, some for 25%, but the goal is to finish the board. I know I've got multiple ways to demonstrate mastery. Me just limping to the end of the board, I got mastery. If I get there with 25% energy, great, I got another level of mastery. There's a game, it's not for little kids. There's a game on Xbox now it's called Katana Zero. It is amazing. It is an amazing game. It is a mature game. So if you have little kids, don't let them play it. But the cool thing about the game, talking feedback, is that when you die, it rewinds you back to the beginning of the stage, and it shows you exactly where you messed up. So as you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's what I missed. Great. And you can do it over and over and over and over and over again, with it just rewinding you back to the beginning. There is no penalty. And you beating the board, it doesn't say it took you 25 times. It just says you beat the board. And but it gives you that feedback without having to speak to you. And I think that's another thing with teachers. If we have goals, right, that are defined, here's the problem, we're looking for a solution to the problem. Immediately, what piece of feedback is available for us? Did your project solve the actual problem, right? If the problem was X, if you were supposed to fix how we make sure that people don't have potholes in the wintertime or whatever, and we build this prototype and we try it out on the potholes and it doesn't work, immediately I know that was the solution to the problem, right? If we start with realia and say, we want you to actually take the ideas that we're trying to teach you and apply them to life, we will see immediately whether those things are true or those things are not true. When we start playing school, and that's going back to the idea of school, what does school mean? If school is just these hypothetical, artificial arguments for the sake of we need to learn some stuff, and not how do we go and change the actual factual life that we're living and apply these to real things, then I think a lot of that feedback from teacher is secondary. I'm going to get real world feedback when I say, okay, I was supposed to build the birdhouse. None of the birds come to the house, Miss Weber. Uh-oh, we got a problem there, Bob. How do we make the birds come to the house? Do we have to change the materials that we're using? Do you put it in a different location? Now we have this other set. Now you encourage people to go and be seekers, be curious, be movers, and check. I'm gonna go research. Does this particular type of bird like it? Their nest low? Do they like it high? Do they not like certain colors? We have a number of things that we can do in order to get the feedback necessary. But if it's like, okay, cool, 4 + 4 is 8. Okay, I put the number 7 there. Now the feedback is kind of like, that's a more difficult problem, right? I just 4 + 8, 4 is 7. Great. Where's the work at, Bob? I don't know. And why are we answering 4 + 4? Because I'm supposed to. What are you applying 4 + 4 to? I don't know. Because the worksheet say I got to add 4 + 4. Now, does Bob want to do the work? No, Bob doesn't want to do 4 + 4. But if you say, okay, cool, how do we actually make the information the worksheet was attempting to convey to the student relevant for the kid? I think you have a lot more buy-in. In the feedback component is built into the system rather than now as teacher I have to sit on my couch and write copious notes on the sheet of paper about why, show your work, Bob, show your work, for every paper. We had that issue a couple of weeks ago where I don't know why these kids aren't getting the number sense right. And you're like, are you looking at the little worksheet? It's like, because it's just a worksheet, fam. They're just putting the numbers there. How do I know what the feedback I need to give the kid is for? How do I know that they did something wrong? So great question as usual, V. Appreciate that. But yeah, I think the feedback, if we start building authentic assessments, authentic opportunities, then the feedback takes care of itself. I would guess, Webbs, that when you are put on a project and you think you have solved a problem and you test it and it don't work, that's the feedback, right?
This is correct. Software development is like the worst video game.
But
Yay, I have a new problem.
But when you get it, it's sweet, right? You're like, dang, I've conquered the
honestly,
boss.
it really is. Like, if you've ever seen a software developer who's been like working with the same problem and then all of a sudden they get a different error and they're like, yes, I got a different error. This is great.
Progress.
There's so much joy there.
Progress, man. I ain't no software developer, but like just playing with graphics and stuff and not having something render the right way. You're like, that sucked. Why didn't that render? Going to YouTube and finding some other person had that same problem. They're like, all right, change this, and that, and going through. Like trying to figure out how to have transparent video kick out of Final Cut Pro and like knocking my head with the knowledge that I knew about Final Cut Pro and then finally walking into a different YouTuber. It was like, dude, it's easy. Oh, word? It's easy. Let me see. 2-minute video, figured it out, handed it. Now I got that in part of my skill set. So busting your head against the wall also teaches you to remember the things that you didn't know before. But we're like 18 minutes over.
We're so over.
Indeed. So my friends who are in Nevada, we've been 2 months in. One of the things to kind of challenge yourself, and we're working on some things behind the scenes that Webbs kind of knows about, kind of doesn't know about, to help you on your Canvas journey. All right. Because at this point, I think one of the goals for every teacher in Nevada should be to have a Canvas course ready for instruction for the 2021-2022 school year. And to start to utilize that as a means by which to de-stress yourself first and foremost, but to also have your students go at a pace that is more conducive to their learning style. Canvas has the built-in immersive reader, the translation, has a lot of stuff that Google Classroom is not going to have. And
the module setup.
The module setup is golden, but it also has the ability to transfer that information and be copied from course to course to course ad infinitum, with you changing the things and moving things around. The cross-listing the courses is kind of dope. If they could fix the grade pass back, that would be nice. That would be the only thing that's kind of missing there. That kind of blows where you put everything there and you still have to hand grade everything. But grade pass back notwithstanding, it is a tool that I think can be utilized and exploited by teachers. And also, let's stop teaching in vacuums where everyone is trying to create their own stuff by themselves. There are a lot of us who can collaborate. If you're building modules in Canvas, the cool thing about Canvas is you can share those modules. So I can just take pieces of your course and build it into mine. So if you don't know how to make GIFs, great. You don't need to learn how to do it. You can learn it at your own pace. Just steal my modules and put in your course so the kids learn how to create the GIFs, rather than you having to know all the things, which I think is another the group work idea, right? I have to know all the things in order for my kids to know all the things. No, you don't. So if tech is not your thing, if something else is your thing, use that. Find other people that do other things that you can't do. I am not a software engineer. Guess who does the software engineering type stuff for the hoodlums?
And I'm the super creative teacher who's in the classroom. So guess who does all the super creative teacher who's in the classroom stuff for the hoodlums?
So if we are there are some overlaps in skills, but we are two distinct people, and that's why it works, because I ain't got to do what she does and she don't have to do what I do. So that being the case, God bless America. For our Nevada teachers, Nevada Day is tomorrow. Go make sure you sleep in late. Go, you can Netflix and chill tonight if that's what you want. That's what your thing is. Tuesday. Go ahead, Webs.
I have a very important piece of information.
Yes.
And that is that when you refer to a group of people by their particular place, that is called a demonym.
A demonym.
And the demonym for people who live in Lesotho is Basotho.
Basotho.
So the people of Lesotho are the Basotho.
The with the B?
Basotho. That may be anglicized for English Wikipedia.
One of my post-COVID goals go to Lesotho. So that's one of my post-COVID goals. Just because it's small and it's inside another country, which is very interesting to me. There's a country inside another country that's totally surrounded by South Africa. That's really interesting. The
capital is Maseru.
So it's just an interesting situation. I'm going to check that out.
Isn't it inside of Djibouti?
No, it's inside of South Africa. It's in the south.
Oh, my bad. My geography is
poor. This is a PG show. It's inside Djibouti. No, it's not inside Djibouti. But come on, Webbs. Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
I'm sorry for people from Djibouti. I'm sure you get real tired of all the Djibouti boat jokes.
It's like Uranus is full of gas. Anyway.
Yeah. Uranus.
Anyway. So Friday, Nevada Day for everyone. And then Tuesday, don't forget to vote. I don't care who you vote for. Actually, I do care who you vote for, but I'm not going to tell you to vote for. Go vote. Make sure that your voice is heard, please. Vote not only for our local and our state representative. Also, read up on those judges. Like it's like 50 million judges on there.
So, pro tip: the Nevada Independent has a wonderful spread of anyone. So they sent out a survey they covers all the judge races and whatever. They sent out a survey with a ton of questions. They also have on their website contributions, like what contributions were made to their campaigns. Highly recommend looking at that before you decide who you're going to vote for. I found that very informative. So yeah, if you just Google like whatever the judge race is, whatever like district or whatever, and then Nevada Independent, they have a really great spread of like everyone, all the races, all their information. Yeah, they did a really good job.
School board trustees as well. If you're down here in the South, school board trustees, very, very important. So that being said, Webb, you got anything to close us out with?
No, I voted already.
I voted too. All right. God bless America. God bless the Basotho in Lesotho.
Yeah.